Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking all about DC and Marvel because there is a big crossover coming between the two properties very soon. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. So we've got a couple of topics to break down today. One article is coming from bleedingcool.com, the other one is from the Popverse. Links will be in the description below so you can go ahead and read those articles yourself. Like we did in yesterday's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the comics because there is some big news, and like I've said recently, I'm trying to do other types of content, not just DC TV or not just films, but obviously I'll try and incorporate film and TV topics like we're going to talk about in kind of like the back half of this video, but we are expanding on this channel to do a lot more. So let's talk about the first article. This is from bleedingcool.com. And it starts like this. DC Comics Editor-in-Chief Mary Javins and Marvel Comics Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski took to the stage this weekend at Comics Pro, which is a comic book retailer summit in Glendale, California. So they announced that a new crossover between DC and Marvel will be released later this year, confirming finally those two are going to be crossing over for the first time in quite a long time. So it's going to be two one-shots, and it will be officially titled Marvel/DC and will be produced by Marvel Comics, and also it will be produced by DC Comics. And actually the two different comic books are going to be reversed in the title, so when it's the first one it's going to be Marvel/DC, and then the second one, which is produced by DC Comics, will be DC/Marvel, so you have the two titles and they're just alternating. And so at the event, obviously they got asked all about why they're doing this, and the two talked about working on the recent reprint of the previous DC and Marvel comic crossover that they did, and that was published last year. That was the reprint, and they basically told the event, the people who were there, we really enjoyed working together and this was a really good project to have done, but I think there's another whale that we've got. So I guess they mean something big that they can do and something that everyone's going to be excited for, because they say we haven't seen this in 20 years or so, and they're trying to figure out how they can make this huge crossover event a big deal. I mean, if they want any inspiration, obviously you could look to what they've done on TV, what DC has done with the Arrowverse. They made crossovers a huge thing. They got so many people so excited, and I think if they're smart, crossing DC and Marvel over, which I think they should eventually do in the films, because I think that would just break the box office. I think if they're smart, they've got to get the biggest characters in there. They've got to find a way of advertising it so they get non-comic readers who are DC and Marvel fans who will like watch the films or watch the TV shows to go and read the comic book and try it out, because not everyone reads comic books, even if you are a fan of like Batman, Superman, Iron Man or Captain America. So they continue by saying another crossover, a modern crossover, are you up for it? When talking to the people who were there at the event, and they talked about when it's going to come out, and they said, can we get it done in 2025? And they continue by saying, I think we are going to put together some creators and some character ideas, so that is what we're getting in 2025, because the two of them are teasing this big crossover for Marvel and DC. So let me know, what do you think about this down in the comments below. This article obviously gives us a good overview of what they said at the event, but I'm sure there's going to be lots of new information about the characters showing up, about who the people are that are creating this comic book, because it has the potential to be huge and actually draw in a bigger audience than normally DC and Marvel are getting in the comics right now. And I know that I will be reading this when it comes out, and I will be very interested to see the matchups, because it's what we all think about, right? Like, you watch a Spider-Man film and then you watch a Batman film and you're like, wow, imagine these two being together. Or I guess you could find a better comparison, like in the past you've had Superman fighting Spider-Man. There is that iconic image that was in that past crossover, and that original crossover was the Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man comic, and they did regular crossovers in the early 80s, but basically they kind of stopped doing that after a while, and then they started to do a couple more crossovers in the 90s as far as I know and my knowledge goes, And really since then, it's been about 20 years since we had like a proper crossover event between Marvel and DC, because each company has very much so tried to focus on creating their content and making it the most successful that they can, and they are competitors at the end of the day. But I think at one point you surely come back together and make a huge project like this DC/Marvel or Marvel/DC project that they're going to be doing this year. And I'm just going to hop over to the CBR article because there's a really good quote from former DC publisher Dan Didio, and he talked about crossovers with Marvel a while back, and he said this, and I think this is important. You're talking to the one person that stopped every Marvel and DC crossover. I'm going to tell you why I stopped it, and I'm going to say this to everyone. My reason was, when you're in competition with other places, you have to have pride in your own work. You have to believe in your own material. The only reason I'm crossing over is if I'm having really bad sales or there is a problem with the market, and if I have to rely on other companies to prop my characters up, then I'm in bigger trouble than I thought. My second reason was, after that comes out, what do you do next? After you cross that over and get that big moment, you're still back in the same place you were beforehand, and now it seems less special because you remove so many other things away from it. So there you have it. That is why a lot of those crossovers back in the day were actually blocked, which I think makes complete sense, and I understand why there hasn't been a crossover in 20 plus years and why the films haven't crossed over yet, despite the fans obviously wanting it, because it will be like one of the biggest crossovers ever, like even bigger than Crisis on Infinite Earths or something like that. But the point he makes about what do you do after that, that is true. Like, how is anything going to top that? And really, I don't know. So let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about all of this? We're going to move on to the last topic of today's video, and this is still linked to Marvel and DC, because Dave Bautista has asked the directors of Superman and Avengers Doomsday if there are any new roles for him inside the MCU or DCU. So let's talk about this, because Dave Bautista is obviously James Gunn's go-to guy. He loves to work with him. He played Drax in the MCU, in Guardians of the Galaxy for James Gunn, but now that James is over in the DCU, being in charge of this new universe, he has presented himself to the director to, you know, have a role eventually in DC, which I almost am certain he is going to have sooner rather than later. And so he said, Drax is completely closed to me. Although he had an out, he said, unless James Gunn called me and asked if I would do something as Drax again, I just wouldn't be interested. And if James called me, which obviously is not going to happen because he is after all not doing anything with Marvel these days now that he's got that DC gig. And he continues to talk about the MCU by saying, I do want to be in that world, I'm a fan of that world, I'm a fan of comic books and the whole universe, talking about the MCU here. Marvel, DC, I just want to be in it. I made that known to James. I made that known to the Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars directors, Russo brothers, and personally I talked to all of them and told them, don't count me out. If there's a character that I'd be right for and that you want me for, I'd totally be open-minded to it. It's just a Drax character that's run its course. So I understand this. I understand Dave Bautista being like, yeah, I don't want to play Drax anymore, because he played Drax since 2014 when Guardians first came out, and he played him in many films, not just the Guardian films. He was in Infinity War, he was in Endgame, he was in Love and Thunder. He's been with Drax for such a long time, and now that he is actually a successful actor away from Marvel, he obviously is going to be focusing on other types of roles, and that's why he doesn't want to kind of like backtrack. That's just kind of the way I see it. Even though he was great as Drax, you've seen him in Blade Runner, you've seen him in the Dune films, you've seen him in Knives Out. He's a great actor and he's got lots going on, so he doesn't really need to go back in the past and do that. Although I like that he is open, and I like that he's told both the people in charge of the MCU and the DCU that, look, I'm available, guys. I love being in these films, these TV shows, but I want to play something different. I want to do something different. So I do believe that it's more likely that he's going to show up in the DCU before he's going to show up in the MCU, because he is such good friends with James, and we know that James is open to recasting people, to having his friends and the actors he's worked with in the past come in and play new characters in the DCU. Because, I mean, look at the Superman cast, like a lot of them have worked with him before. but also there is precedent for recasting in the MCU because apparently Robert Downey Jr. is set to play Doctor Doom, which I do have my question marks about. I do think there is going to be a switch. There could be multiple Doctor Dooms, and maybe that is a way of getting out of just Robert Downey Jr. being the main big bad of the new era of the MCU. But by confirming that he is supposed to play Doctor Doom, I believe that there is definitely the opportunity to bring in past actors in the MCU like Dave Bautista and have them play other roles in the universe. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. Please let me know if you do like this type of video, talking about comic books rather than just strictly films. Obviously we did in the last topic, but for now, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos around here. And you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.